really a pleasure and privilege for me to be here and to share a few observations about spiritual situation in Europe. I think most of you are coming from Europe, so probably you are familiar with what's going on in Europe spiritually. But it's always a privilege for me to share with a group that is really strategically thinking about why and how to invest in church and in the gospel in Europe. So it's interesting, really, that you came to Czech Republic, that is so famous for being maybe one of the most secularized countries in the world. But in fact, for me, it's a privilege to be in a country where it's such a big challenge for all of us. But at the same time, you have much more opportunities than you can imagine. There's a pioneering spirit among so many young people here that want and can start new things. And they just need good mentors and good people around them to do it. And they can do it. But is really God alive in Europe? Yes, definitely it is. He is. But many people who are coming from outside of Europe or thinking about supporting church in Europe are asking questions like, why we should care about Europe when God is moving so much in other parts of the world, with the great movements in China, India, and Pakistan, Africa, and South America. Is really Europe the dark continent or not? So many people think, okay, there the miracles happen, Spirit is moving. Isn't it a waste of time and money for Europe? Why has Europe changed from one of the key homes of missionary movements in history into the main exporter of agnosticism and atheism? Why churches like the one in UK, after 100 years of renewal after Wesley and major changes in society through people like Wilberforce, were swept away very quickly and easily? So what are the ways for the future in Europe? Do we need new people like Jan Hus, whose life story maybe you heard? People who are passionate for truth and are able and willing to sacrifice everything? What kind of new reformation we need within churches in Europe? How to share effectively gospel in largely religiously ignorant and indifferent societies. How to encourage people who are feeling more and more ashamed of their faith because we became a minority in Europe. Or maybe there are another questions that I'll try to answer. Is Europe the strategic place for the future of Christianity? Strategic battlefield? Or will the situation be changed through mission movements from outside, from China, from Cambodia, from South America? Are those mission movements able to change the spiritual landscape of Europe? And definitely so many migrant churches and migrants are changing our societies. But will they reach nationals? Will they reach people who were brought in Europe? But what is the story of Europe? What is really God doing? I saw that you have a kind of Bible verse for all this conference from Jeremiah 31. I have loved you with an everlasting love. Therefore I have continued my faithfulness to you, and again I will build you, and you shall be built. And it sounds quite optimistic. But I believe that we as a European church are going through a situation that is very much similar to Jeremiah 29. Everybody knows some verses from that part of the Bible. For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans for peace and not for evil, to give you a future and hope. Then you will call upon me and come and pray to me, and I will hear you. You will seek me and find me when you seek me with all your heart. But actually, it's another part that I would like to share. And it's from verse 29, chapter 29, 4 to 7, that I think explains better our situation. Thus says the Lord of hosts, the God of Israel, to all the exiles whom I have sent into exile from Jerusalem to Babylon, build houses and live in them, plant gardens and eat their produce. Take wives and have sons and daughters. Take wives for your sons and give your daughters in marriage, that they may bear sons and daughters. Multiply there and do not decrease. But seek the peace of the city where I have sent you into exile, and pray to the Lord on its behalf, for in its welfare you will find your peace. Do we live in Jerusalem and Europe? Not anymore. We live in a Babylon that has different culture, different values. Of course, Europe was shaped and has been shaped by Christian values for centuries, so it hasn't disappeared. But more and more we are living in a society that doesn't share our values. We became a minority, cognitive minority, religious minority. And here Jeremiah sends a letter to his community in exile, giving them vision for next 70 years, showing them how to live in a society that is hostile. There is no power that they would have. When legislation is not Jewish, is not according to God's law. We are living in a Babylon more and more. And how to be faithful, how to share gospel in Babylon, how to fight for legislation, how to fight for our freedom of religion, freedom of consciousness in Babylon. And it was also a sin that was the reason why that ended up in Babylon. And it's a sin of European church that caused the situation where we are in right now. It's not Enlightenment philosophy, it's not Darwinism, it's not the thing, all the culture around. It's because we were so connected with the state power that the gospel was compromised in so many countries. That the responsiveness to gospel today is so low in Europe. So we lost our power. We lost the first seats in the theater. And we are in a situation when we became weak. But we maybe have an opportunity to find fresh expressions how to be church truly, without power, maybe through our weakness. And it's a cleansing experience for many Christians across Europe. So we live in a kind of post-Christendom society. But is church in Europe dead? No, not at all. Can it be renewed only from outside? No. It has to be supported, but we need European solutions for European problems as well. I have a quote here from one of my friends from World Vision organization and his name is Jan Uvenel. And he said, "The 20th century has brought the shortcomings of the European church to light in a relentless way. Not only its moral impotence due to war and violence, but also its lack of spiritual authority that is reflected in secularization. The awareness of these failures has not left us unaffected. The silence of the church in Europe is the silence of someone being silenced by her own past. Someone who can no longer hide her weakness behind a mask of power and pompousness, but must learn to live with the naked truth. Shame, resignation, and loom indeed. But the good news is that the silence in Europe is having a cleansing effect on an increasing number of Christians. But what is the strategic importance of Europe? I believe strongly that Europe is the battlefield for the future of Christianity globally. We can say that we see the very young movements across the globe of church. And now we are in a country with 1,000 years history of Christianity. But there are some key and unique challenges in Europe that needs to be solved here, because it's very likely that the same ideas that shaped European history will come to the global movements, Christian movements, in the future. Are we going to find solutions to sharing gospel in a highly secularized and consumer societies? Or not? We became old lady as a European Christianity. Maybe we became more sad, maybe more wiser, but we need to go through a phase to show that we can find new answers. I said ideologies that we export to the world and to world elites, especially political and business elites, secularist ideologies, are spreading from Europe. We are still educating most of the global elites right now as Europe. And we need to find answers here. Because most of the global Christianity is quite shallow, and it can be uprooted easily. We need to learn some lessons here. But the problem across Europe is that church, through various reasons, influence of communism, influence of stagnation, long-term stagnation, we lost momentum, and this conference is called Momentum. So we need to find the key places where to invest, how to help European church to claim back hope, to find ways how to adapt, how to grow, how to innovate, how to find the answers. I believe that across Europe there is a whole new generation of people that I call Calebs. Calebs who have a new spirit, who have no fear of obstacles and giants in the secular society, but as well in their churches. Many times greater obstacles lie not out there, but within our own denominations. So we have to win younger people. We have to win these Calebs, that they would be ready to invest their lives for the gospel, for the kingdom, for the church. Especially here in Central and Eastern Europe, those Calebs are coming from a generation born after fall of communism. They are very different. They are not burdened so much by the past. They are not afraid. They just need to be supported, be mentored, and have environment when they can do what they are called to do. These Calebs, they don't share the ghetto mentality, the slave mentality of the past. They don't have the grasshoppers mentality, as I call it. Yeah, we are small, we are just, little. We can't do anything. They don't care. They don't care. But are we going to find them? Are we going to empower them? Are we going to let them do the thing? But they also need Calebs like you. Caleb wasn't just a young person when he was entering the promised land to scout it. But also he was Caleb with his whole generation that died out in the desert. So he's witnessed how his fellow friends died. But at the same time, he was leading new Calebs, new people into the promised land. And when they succeeded, he finally said, when he was, I think, 80 or 90, let me do what God promised me and claim the land that he promised me. So we need those 90 years Calebs to do it. And there are so many of them in Europe. And I believe that we have enough good leaders who could change the spiritual atmosphere in Europe, just if we would do the right thing and invest in them. And there are good examples across Europe. Just last week there was a big conference called City to City Europe with Tim Keller coming and encouraging mainly young leaders, hundreds of them, for church planting in capital cities and large cities in Europe. In the last 15 years, just in the UK, maybe 2,000 churches have been planted. Evangelical Free Church in Germany plants new church every month. Migrant churches are flooding London, Spain, and other parts of Europe. Ukraine sends missionaries and church planters to Central Asia, to Turkey. There are national church planting movements in the Nordic countries, for example, Norway, Sweden. Just in Norway, they have an annual gathering of church planters and just a group of 90 people, and they planted some 350 churches in the last 15 years. So what are the key points of strategic interest for investment in Europe? I believe that we have to support initiatives that proven to be effective in sharing gospel in Europe. Without sharing gospel, there is no hope. Whenever we share gospel, there is fruit. Just is that simple. But I believe that we have to support urban church planting as well, solid theologically, but at the same time full of people who are able to communicate with religiously skeptical people, with respect, listening, and humbleness, but with relevant gospel. I believe that we need strong models. We need to see Daniels. Daniel was the one who responded, I think, in the best way to Jeremiah's letter. And his influence was so great. And we need more of them. We had one of them here in Czech Republic, or we have one of them. His name is Libor Michalek. He led one of the governmental funds, environmental fund. And he was fired because he exposed how the finances from this fund were let out to finance illegally political parties in Czech Republic. But you can see the impact on people. You can see that they had hope again that we can fight corruption here in the country. And he is evangelical Christian. But we need hundreds of them. Why so few had courage to do that? Because everybody knows. So we need Daniels. We need you. As I said, we need to support Calebs, both young and old, people of different spirit. We need to mentor also intellectual leaders, because Europe is intellectual. We need simple message, we need simple gospel, but at the same time, so many Christians are not confident in sharing gospel because they think that we don't have the answers to some ideas that are governing Europe. I believe that we have to also support who I call apostolic leaders, people who think in movements, in Europe. It's quite easy to think in movements when you live in China or India, where the growth is exponential. But you have to find people who are foolish enough to think about movements in Europe and who are able to lead and manage their ministries and churches in a way that they are replicable, that they are easy to grow. Because so much of church planting and ministries in Europe is so financially demanding that you can't replicate them. So find them in the nation, support them. Find those people who have a DNA of movements, because we need them. We have to increase the level of leadership in churches and ministries. At the same time, I believe that we have to transform culture of our churches and denominations. Because without that, the Calebs will have really difficult life. And churches still have so many resources. And we are sending so many missionaries globally. But are we actually focusing on mission in Europe, in our countries? Are we finding and investing in the right people? I don't think that we should stop foreign mission, not at all. On the contrary, I think we should send missionaries and the best people to other countries. But there are examples already of transformation like that, especially in the nations where denominations are not too large. With a good leadership, you can change whole atmosphere. There is one example of a Baptist church in Latvia. They just have a new bishop for 5 years, and he was able to transform whole denomination into a church planting movement without splitting it. How he did it? He was able to win the old guys, the old whiteskins, but he also started a new training for younger people. He's drafting the best younger leaders and especially men in his denomination, and comes with a manly challenge, really, to start and invest their lives for the gospel. And he has now maybe 35 new teams for church planting and several really good examples of churches that have been planted, and with many new people, many new converts. And he says, if you lead one congregation, it's like caring for a tree. But if you lead a denomination, it's like causing a climate change. And he succeeded in that. Young people now believe that this is the place. This is the place where I can do it. And the old guys, it's very difficult to oppose when you baptize maybe 150 people at the same place where the Baptist movement began 150 years ago there. But this Baptist bishop had to be supported. Because very often those leaders who have the capacity, have the skills, need others who would lead them and help them through the process. And he was part of the learning community of leaders of church planting movements in Europe. And they met every 6 months for 3 days, defined where they are, where they could be, and where they will be in next 6 months. And they encouraged each other. They got training. They were stretched in their thinking and strategy, and they were helped. And especially, I think, across Eastern Europe, we need these kind of environments, learning environments, where people can stay accountable to each other, but also be helped through quite difficult process of changing quite environment that is quite, I think, resistant to change. But it can be done. It can be done, and it is strategic need across Europe. So I'm really glad that you are here. Thank you for listening, and I wish you a blessed rest of the time with you that you will spend here in Prague. Thank you.